Hello and welcome to the LRM Podcast, sponsored by Adrian Flux Insurance. I'm Martin Dominy.
And I'm Steve Miller.
And we're joined today by Paul Myers, who's Managing Director of Britpart. Nice to see you, Paul.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
I'm very well, very well. How are you?
Yes, very good today, thanks. Very good.
Good. Britpart will obviously won't be new news to anyone who's into Land Rovers. They are the biggest parts supplier in the world of Land Rover bits. So it's really nice to come and look around the expansive premises and have a chat to you and see what's going on in your world, really. So kicking off, I suppose, Britpart, Land Rover bits, the aftermarket goes hand in hand. In the latest issue of Land Rover Monthly, actually, we've got Greg King going around All Makes, which is a division of Britpart now, I believe.
Sure, yes, yeah. Since 2019, All Makes and Britpart have been jointly owned by a group of companies, so All Makes are in the family now as well.
Okay, and All Makes also under that is Terra Firma, isn't it? Which is more the sort of after the off-road side of things.
Sure, yes, yeah. The Terra Firma range is predominantly spring shockers, but we're branching out into leisure wear, camping, and associated products as well.
Cool. So literally something for everyone. If you're into Land Rovers, then there's going to be stuff here that you're going to want to buy. A bit about Britpart itself. Obviously, we're in Shropshire. We've come up to leafy Shropshire today, haven't we, Steve?
Very rainy Shropshire today.
It is quite rainy.
Needed a Land Rover to get through some of those floods on the way here.
Yeah, it's quite miserable outside. But the Britpart is nestled in the hills, isn't it? On the sort of border. And how many acres is it? Because it is absolutely huge.
We've got 55 acres of land here. We are kind of about 10 miles away from the Welsh border. So hence the holding company is called Border Holdings. We actually started a business nearer to the Welsh border. Obviously, it's still a very strong traditional defender market around here. A lot of farming, a lot of agricultural going on. So still a lot of the traditional defender.
Absolutely. I mean, you don't have to drive far from here to see tons and tons of your sort of square Land Rovers series and Defenders driving around, so they're still very much a big part of people's lives around here, which is refreshing to see, because sort of the double cab Japanese stuff sort of taken over a little bit where we're from, hasn't it?
It has in the farming community, definitely. But I mean, we even saw a project vehicle on the way here, didn't we?
We did.
Well, we believe it's a project. You never really keep your eye on backs of fields and things.
Yeah,
with the 90 sitting there.
You can't not drive past someone's place and you spy that silhouette, don't you, in the distance, and you think, hang on, what's going on there?
Doesn't have a dog in here.
I was actually in Wales over the weekend and managed to see, the first time ever, somebody had made a gate out of a Land Rover chassis, which I thought was really cool.
Exactly.
Heavy duty gate.
Heavy, expensive gate as well.
Was it galvanised?
It's a galvanised 110 chassis being used as a gate.
Wow. I've never seen that. I'd love to see that. If you're listening and you've got a galvanised chassis as a gate, send us a photo, editorial@lrm.co.uk, because I would love to see that.
It's quite interesting, isn't it, to see what other people make from bits of Land Rover. I was watching the telly the other day and somebody had made like a garden seat. It was one of Henry Cole's programmes, I think.
Oh, right.
The sort of thing you see on daytime telly, but it wasn't the daytime.
Right.
And they'd made like a garden seat from some wings of a Series 3, and he was sitting on some seats under the hut, and they used the hard top as a shelter.
Fantastic.
And then we've seen that swimming pool, haven't we? That was in the magazine.
Oh, there's a hot tub, isn't there? An Airbnb.
Yeah.
It's a Series tub, I think, isn't it?
Series tub, hot tub. So people do make things out of old bits of Land Rover.
We'd prefer to see them as Land Rovers, but if
Of course.
got to the end of a useful life, hot tub sounds a good idea.
Absolutely.
Probably not today, though.
Yeah. No, maybe.
I haven't seen any Land Rover hot tubs in the Britpart catalogue, which is obviously, anyone that's ever seen the Britpart catalogue, the range of parts is extensive, isn't it?
It is, yes. I mean, we cover our range of accessories covers really from the beginning of Land Rover to current vehicles. Service items, which is more the prime business, is service items, service and repair. We're kind of covering vehicles from about 1970 to vehicles just coming out of warranty, about 4 years old. And the key vehicle for the last few years has been a Discovery 4. And that's now changing over towards the Discovery 5, Discovery Sport, as the Discovery 4 becomes less used.
I suppose from your perspective, it's quite good because you will know from sort of like what Land Rover are bringing out now, what you need to start developing and working on in for 4 years' time when those vehicles fall into or out of dealer warranty.
Sure, yeah. I mean, there's an obvious list of what we call ABC parts, which mean filters, brake pads, wiper blades. We need to cover those really from day one. And then we're looking at the more interesting parts. So like on a car air suspension, it'll be the air suspension compressor or the suspension struts. Discovery 4 Range Rover Sport in the past has been handbrake modules. That's a favourite.
You love a handbrake module on one of those.
Many a happy hour spent fishing the park brake cables out from a rusty old Discovery 3. Yeah, great.
Yeah, and apparently the worst one to do now is a Discovery 4, the latter ones with the extra AdBlue tank on.
Oh.
Which is almost a body-off job to do.
They splitting, aren't they, the tanks?
Well, it's get to the handbrake module.
Oh, sorry.
Yours the handbrake module, so you've got to lift the body to get to it.
Wow, that's it.
I've not measured that late, but that sounds horrific.
We spoke about this before on the previous podcast, haven't we? You know, whilst that body's off and whilst you're there, you may as well basically spend more money and do all of the maintenance jobs and swap things out if needs be.
Yeah, there's certainly ways to. It might sting in the short term, but long term, you're not then getting 2 years down the line and finding tons of other stuff that needs doing that you should have done while it was staring you in the face. It's interesting you say that Discovery 4 and now 5 are sort of like the core vehicles, because I would have thought I would have gone straight to Defender, but it's quite interesting to hear.
Yeah, Defender's still it's only 4 years old, and so a lot of them will still be under lease in mainland Europe. So those by default will go back to the main dealer. So we're seeing them coming into our independent workshops, but not on a regular basis yet. So probably another 6 months to 12 months we'll see that. The advantage of the new Defender is the engine components are very common with Discovery Sport, basically the Ingenium engine. So filters we've got covered, brakes we've got covered.
Timing chains.
Timing chains. Timing chains are an issue with the Ingenium, as we know. Yeah, we've got those covered as well. It's a fantastic job for the workshop to swap one of those. Probably about a day and a half's labour. But not one I'd want to do myself.
No, what a lot of people don't realise is the automatic gearbox on a Discovery Sport and an Evoque is an absolute beast of a thing. They are incredibly heavy and cumbersome to move around. And from what I've seen, if you're going to buy sort of an early Ingenium, which is potentially prone to issues, the economy, so the blue badge, 2-wheel drive manual is the one to go for, because you can have the gearbox out and the chain done in not much time at all. But like you say, there's going to be plenty of garages busy with Ingeniums over the next few years, I think.
Sure, and what we're doing a lot of work on that. We've changed from the time we changed ourselves in our research workshop. What we're finding is the oil dilution is key to that. When we talk to the oil companies, they say that the engine oil shouldn't really go past about 3% dilution from AdBlue. What we're actually seeing is it's going to 9% before it puts a light on the dashboard.
Right, okay. Yeah, so really more regular oil changes and longer journeys would probably help that, I guess.
We would like to say yes, not because we want to sell oil and filters, but purely to give a car longevity. An extra oil change wouldn't go amiss. The standard service interval is about 15 to 18,000 miles, depending on the usage. I think it's a wise investment if it's your own car to halve that and get an oil and filter change done halfway through.
Wow, okay, yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. They always say that oil is a cheap tool, don't they? It might hurt, like I say, especially modern synthetic oils, not the cheapest to buy, but a lot cheaper than having your chains done or even a replacement engine. So, yeah, good advice. So, obviously, Land Rovers are, they're what Britpart do, but you're actually a big Land Rover guy yourself, aren't you? You're an enthusiast to the core before the business, if you see what I mean.
Sure, yeah. No, I've had bought the first Land Rover when I was 17 and owned them for the last 40 years. So Yeah, I love the Defenders, love the older ones. Bit of a love-hate relationship with some of the new ones. I think the new Defender is a brilliant car. There's a lot of resistance to it when it first came out from the traditionalists, and myself included. But it's grown on me, and I'd say to anybody who's still sat on the fence and unsure about it, go and take one for a test drive, and you'll be absolutely blown away with the capability of it.
I completely agree. I think I was, along with a lot of other sort of enthusiasts, a bit sceptical about it when it first came round. Maybe not totally won over by the styling, but when you drive one, especially off-road, you actually understand the incredible amount of engineering that's gone into it and how capable it is at just about everything. And you do still get the hardcore moaning about it, but once you've been behind the wheel of one, it's hard to poo-poo it, really.
Absolutely. I mean, the off-road capability is just amazing, and it flatters a driver. You think you are a brilliant driver, but really the electronics are doing everything for you, and it will climb the side of a house. But then 5 minutes later, you can be cruising down the motorway at 70 miles an hour in perfect comfort. 5 people in the car, listen to the radio. It's not the compromise the old Defender was. It's not the comfort of a full Range Rover, but you've got a very, very capable car for doing most things.
Very good.
So in terms of like going back to Britpart then, so you'll obviously have a finger on the pulse in terms of market trends and things like that. Are you seeing any trends in the market at the moment particularly with the older Land Rovers?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the market always evolves. I mean, the great thing about a series and the Defenders is that it's been constant. There's a blip with the Defenders when production finished and everybody went mad to buy one, and the values went up, but it's settled back down now. What we do see, though, is things like the Freelander 1. The Freelander 1 is now a car where in the past we've been selling an enormous amount of transfer boxes and engine rebuild kits. Unfortunately, now due to the value of it, due to the emissions, people don't really bother rebuilding them if they go wrong. So we're seeing associated products like the anti-wall bar links, brake disc, brake pads, also are suffering on a vehicle like that. So the good thing with Land Rover has been traditionally the long tail, the long life of a vehicle, so you can keep selling parts for many years. Freelander 1, that's changing, but it's being replaced by Freelander 2 and also the newer vehicles as well.
You do see a lot of Freelander 1s still on the road, don't you? And you don't often see the equivalent competitor car of its year still on the road.
Absolutely. I think it's...
a lot of our enthusiasts and followers will drive Freelander 1s.
A lot of, especially... I mean, it's quite rare to see a pre-facelift now, I would say. But I think the problem is the facelift kind of blends in. It doesn't really stand out like if you saw a Discovery 1, you go, oh, wow, it's instantly recognisable, whereas they're a bit more subdued perhaps with styling on the Freelander, so it's not quite as obvious. But the earlier ones, certainly like the L series and the early 1.8 are starting to get a real following now. But like you say, as sort of daily runners, they're obviously getting to a point where people are going, oh, it probably needs some welding on the sills and it needs all these bits and maybe the diff's a bit tired. People are cutting their losses rather than fixing them. I guess every car does that to an extent, and then the ones that are left come out the other side and they actually gain in value and popularity again, like the Discovery 1.
Sure. I think one of the advantages Discovery 1 has is that it's quite a good fun car to drive, and I know that our friends the other side of a pond will laugh when I say that. Unfortunately, in America, we predominantly got the V6 petrol, which caused an awful lot of problems. In the UK and in Northern Europe, an awful lot of them are diesels, and the BMW 2-litre engine car is actually quite a good car to drive. And if you get a good one, they're good fun to drive, they're economical, and they're not fast, but they keep up with traffic. So it's kind of worth keeping hold of it. And yes, at Abbey shows you see early edition ones, and you see the Camel Trophy ones and the G4 ones that people are really infusing about now.
Yeah, it is good to see that people are keeping, especially the more special ones, alive. Whenever I see like the Kalahari, which was like the sort of G4 edition in the Tangiers orange or Borrego yellow on eBay, they always get snapped up really quickly. similar to the 50th anniversary Freelands as well. They seem to have quite a following. Long may it continue, because if people did just run them into the ground and scrap them, there wouldn't be any left. So that's good. What's on your own personal fleet then? What Land Rovers do you have in your custody at the moment?
At the moment on the ramp is my two-door Land Rover Classic, a 1971 Land Rover Classic. Just doing some maintenance on it. So just swap the thermostat, swap the madcap, not because it was overheating, but just in case. Gone through, done a lot of service work on it, and get it ready for storage until next year, because really don't want to bring it out this time of year. Got a really nice Series 1, 1948, 49, 80 Series 1. Again, that's kind of a summer car, really, which is a bit difficult to drive on modern roads due to lack of speed and indicators, etc. But it's great fun on the right day. But I mean, the workhorse car, which I use an awful lot, is a 2.2 Puma 90, which I use for towing, off-roading, go to the shops, and commuting to and from work, which is ideal.
Oh, perfect. It's yeah. I mean, I was thinking about this. I was at Classic Works yesterday, actually, and we were driving some stuff that we'll see soon in the magazine and on YouTube. But the sort of the way the Defender evolved, the different power plants it got. Obviously, the Defender was never really supposed to go past the end of production of TD5, and then someone thought, "Oh no, it's all right. We can repower it with the four-cylinder Ford engines and the 6-speed gearbox." So it did actually work really well. I personally think the 2.2 is nicer to drive than the 2.4. I think it sounds a bit less gruff. But yeah, they're really sort of competent on the road, and obviously with the 6-speed, it's just that bit nicer to drive on the road as well. So I can see why they're so popular. Yours isn't standard though, is it?
It's had a few modifications. We've put air suspension on it, which is fantastic for towing. Remains level all the time. It's had a slight breathing on the ECU, bigger intercooler on it, bigger brakes. Just so it's a very competent car. Really, it really does hustle down the lane road here, which is great fun.
It's on am I right in saying it's on the 18-inch alloys as well?
On 18-inch alloys with pretty sticky tyres. So it's not really set up at the moment for off-roading, but it's great fun to hustle down the lanes in.
Oh, brilliant! I was as I was saying at Classic yesterday, and driving Defenders back to back, that the difference between 16-inch and 18-inch wheels is far greater than I ever expected. The sort of turning and the lack of squirminess on 18s made me think, why weren't people fitting these years and years ago? They actually do make, as well as looking cool, a great difference to how they drive.
They do, and it's interesting. Back in the day when Discovery 2 started coming out with 18-inch and P38s came out with 18-inch, that actually spoilt the ride and the handling a bit. They handled better with 16s. But certainly with Defender, it seems to suit them. So, you get really good results from the 18-inch wheel.
I'd never even considered putting 18. You were saying about on the drive here, Martin was telling me about the difference. I'd never even considered it that it would transform a Defender.
It's just that sort of, on like heavily tram-lined roads and things like that, there's a bit of wiggliness that you get from a Defender, and lack of feedback. Whereas an 18, because you've just got that little bit less tyre, I thought the ride would be harsh, but actually, like I say, back to back, I didn't actually find that much of a difference. But the actual precision and the way it's planted, it feels so much nicer on 18-inch wheels, which again was eye-opening for me because I'd never driven them back to back. I've driven Defenders with 18s on before, but when you go from one straight into the other, it does make a big change.
Sure.
So obviously we covered wheels. We love talking about wheels, but
we're all talking about wheels, and we're also talking about buying Land Rovers, because buying Land Rovers is obviously quite important to a lot of people. And a lot of our readers of the magazine, we know, own more than one Land Rover. Some would say it's because you love them that much, you need more than one. But others would say perhaps it's because you need to rely on getting to work.
The interesting thing I find is people tend to have an older, maybe a Project Series or Defender, but then they'll also run something more modern like a Discovery Sport or Discovery 5 or a Range Rover as their sort of main car, which is, I guess, great for you because you're selling twice the number of bits.
Yeah, I mean, it's surprising how many of our customers, our workshop customers, will say, well, I only service this virtually brand new car because Mr. Smith has got a Series 3 and I've done it for 20 years. So it is a family thing. The cars don't get sold and they keep saving the family and people end up with a collection of them, which is great.
Yeah, too right. It's enviable sometimes. Obviously, we're privy to go and visit these people and have a look around what they've got. And yeah, some of the collections that they've built up over the years are absolutely phenomenal. Very, very impressive indeed. So are you finding, sorry to go back to products, but obviously off-roading was hugely prevalent sort of 90s, early 2000s, but are you finding it's sort of gone in a different direction? Because a lot of people we speak to, they say that the camping overlanding thing and the restoration thing is far more popular now than anything else, or have you seen that change or not really?
Yes, we have definitely. I mean, back in the early 2000s, it was winch bumpers, winches, big wheel arches, high leaf jacks for people to go green-laning and off-roading. That's certainly changed now, and people, as you say, want roof racks, roof tents, camping stoves, or return the car which they modified in 2005 back to factory finish, which is interesting as well.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, quite a good friend of mine had back when we first got into Land Rovers and we first had our first cars, he had a 90 truck cab which he put locking diffs, 35-inch Cymex and fully caged. It was a proper challenge thing. And then as he grew up and had other commitments, that sort of sat in a hedge for about 5 or 10 years. And then he pulled it back out recently and completely stripped it back, rebuilt it on a new chassis. But he went down, I think it's a Keswick green soft top now. And it just shows like that things go full circle and there's always going to be that appetite for changing things up and following the trends, which is quite cool. Yeah, certainly Defenders and Series really lend themselves to that because they are just so easy to take to bits and put back together.
Certainly, we noticed in COVID there was a big demand for roof tents and camping outdoor equipment. Fortunately, that's carried on. So people are wanting to do overland trips, be that to Wales or be that to Morocco. It doesn't really matter, but it depends on budget and workloads.
We're proud to partner with Adrian Flux, an insurance broker that specialises in covering all types of Land Rovers, including classic, ex-military, modified and Q-plated models. Adrian Flux offers a range of optional extras to make the policy your own and can provide cover for off-roading, green laning, agreed value and build-up cover. Plus, they even offer a discount of up to 15% for Owners Club members. Simply search Adrian Flux Land Rover Insurance for more information or call them directly on 0344 728 0417 for a quote.
So obviously Britpart being what a lot of people don't understand, and I think it will be a good idea to address this, is you do sometimes see, shall we say, less than favourable feedback about some bits or some parts, and I do wonder if the parts in question are it's a question of competency of the person who's fitting these parts. But it's important that people understand that Britpart as a company are a distributor rather than you don't actually make your own stuff, do you?
The only thing we make on site here is seats. We have a trim shop that makes seats, and we're a wholesaler, which basically means we've got about 30,000 different part lines, from spark plugs, alternators, windscreens, headlights. No one can make all that. Land Rover don't make that. So you buy that product in from various suppliers. What's happened with the market over the last 20 years or so is that for many years the vehicles were cheap farm hacks. People wanted just a Series 3 to get through an MOT and do it every year, keep it running. And it drove the price of the parts business right down. That's changed now, and people want restoration and getting back to original, and that's fantastic. But the demand on the parts has changed as well. And what we did in about 15 years ago, set up a research and development facility at Britpart, where we personally test the parts, and we test on vehicles, we measure them, we calibrate them, so that when the part goes to market, we're pretty confident that the part will give very similar performance to the part that was put on the car originally.
Got you. So that's fantastic. But I guess also it's about because you don't just supply your own branded stuff, you do OE quality, and then you do genuine Land Rover as well. You supply a part for every budget, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, absolutely. So something like a brake disc, we will have a Britpart version. We'll have say an AP Lockheed or a Brembo version, and we'll also have a genuine Land Rover one. So it depends on the age of the car, and it depends on the taste and the budget of the owner. So we try and cater for each of the owners there.
Yeah. It makes sense really, because like you say, a vehicle that you're relying on every day, maybe you're doing sort of working it hard, or you're doing a lot of off tarmac driving, things like that. You're going to want the best of the best components for that, because you have to rely on it, and perhaps something that you do a couple of 1,000 miles a year in, maybe nip to the coast, a few times at the weekend, something like that. You don't need to perhaps stretch to the very, very most hard wearing stuff. You could go for, like, say, suspension bushes. You might go for a comfort polyurethane, or you might go for a non genuine metallastic bush instead. If you don't want to spend maximum sort of money on it, you can sort of pick and choose different elements of the vehicle. You can choose to spend more or less on it. It all depends. Like you say, there's something for every pocket and every purpose, I suppose.
I mean, obviously, I've looked around this place a few times, and over the years that I've known Britpart, you've grown massively, haven't you, in terms of the parts that you keep on site. And I think a lot of people probably will fail to realise the pure quantity of stuff held here. Pallets and pallets of the same part, because they're high volume, high use parts.
Sure, yeah. I mean, because, and to go back to what we were saying earlier, because the Defender, the design didn't really change on the traditional Defender on a lot of the parts from 1985 to the end of production in 2015-16. So a wheel bearing is the same wheel bearing. Brake discs were the same, although the part number changed. Oil seals were the same on axles. So there's an awful lot of the parts. You're buying the part for a very, very wide production run with a lot of cars in it. So traditionally on a brake disc, we'd be buying about 5,000 at a time. On a hub oil seal, we'll probably buy 20,000 at a time. It gives us economies of scale with purchase, but also it gives us an opportunity to deal with some of the major OE suppliers who, if we were trying to buy 200, would not answer the phone. So people like Cortico or Timken, we can buy off them because we've got it's an easy order for them. It's a sizable order spread over one part number. So we're very fortunate with the historical fleet. That's changing slightly with a more modern fleet. There's more model changes, more super sessions. But similarly, we're finding ways around that, and finding with certain components there's commonality with other parts.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess the more, and of course, the higher the quantity you're buying from the supplier, the better price you can offer it to your customers as well. It's all scale and buying power, I guess, isn't it?
It is. It's buying power, but also, I mean, it's getting the interest of suppliers, because a lot of manufacturing plants do not want to gear up for doing small runs, and so they've already turned the parts down to the OE and said we're not manufacturing those parts anymore. It's volume's too low. If we come along, we can try and negotiate a better volume and get them to remake it for us.
Got you.
So with them, one thing I am familiar with Britpart is the pure quantity of new products that you unveil pretty much on a weekly basis. And how on earth do you keep up with such development on new trends and new parts?
One thing we found helps an awful lot is for the research and development workshop, we have a vehicle just about of every flavour of Land Rover. And just by driving those vehicles, even if it's just driving it for a week, you will pick up on things and say, anti-roll bar's a bit loose, the front suspension's knocking, whatever it be, or you think it'd be great if it's had a tow bar. We don't have a tow bar in range for it. We need to address that. But also the feedback from the customers, our workshops is absolutely crucial because they're feeding back information all the time. And they may be saying that this has gone obsolete and we can't fix the car, which is, a brilliant opportunity. Or they may say, we're fitting these, but it's too expensive for the car now. Can you look at alternatives? So that feedback we act on, and we've got a large purchasing team and a lot of very good suppliers around the world who we can target and say, yes, we know a manufacturer who can make a tow bar or a dog guard. Let's get them to make one for this latest model and get it in range.
It's really good, isn't it? And yeah, I was going to bring that up next, actually. If you're ever... In fact, there's been a couple of videos done at Britpart, maybe something we can walk around at some point with a camera, but the sort of the twin level racks you've got in the development workshop of the, like you say, the different models is really impressive. Personal favourite of mine is the Japanese import Discovery 2 you've got. That is absolutely eat your dinner off it clean.
Yeah, it's a great car. That unfortunately we can't take it out at the moment. The sunroof started leaking, which is
that's very unlike a Discovery.
Very, very, very unusual. I'm told. So we need to strip the headlining out and fix the sunroof and get the headlining redone.
There we go. Drain channels and drain tubes coming soon to the Britpart catalogue. One sound of it.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So outside of your day job, I mean, obviously the MD of the largest Land Rover parts company in the world, you don't just stop there, do you? You go home and you tinker on with other bits and pieces?
Yes, I find it really useful to spend a couple of hours in the evening tinkering away in a workshop before I go home to make a break between the corporate day and going home to a family life.
Sounds ideal. I mean, these workshops here, for anyone that obviously hasn't seen them, they're fantastic. You've pretty much got every tool for every job, haven't you?
Yes, absolutely. We're really spoiled. We've got a fantastic area for lifts, all the welding equipment, everything we possibly need to work on the cars. So it makes it a pleasure to do it.
I think it'd be rude to not bring up the man that keeps the workshop running as well, Mr. Steve Grant, who's appeared, of course, in many magazine articles over the years. Always happy to help. The calmest man I've ever met in my life, I think.
He is the patience of a saint, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Keeps things ticking along.
Yeah, no, absolutely. He's not a man of many words, but he's an absolute encyclopedia on the cars, how they work and how to fix them. So any issue that we come across, there's every chance that he's come across it already, and we can shortcut to an answer on it. But yes, and give him a problem and say, why isn't this working? And an hour later, he'll have stripped it down and found a widget in the middle of it, which is wrong. And it gives us invaluable feedback. And it's a fantastic asset to have with Steve.
Yeah, he's a good old boy, isn't he?
He's helped us out on our end, hasn't he? With our own vehicles that have been down here as disguised as magazine projects.
I don't know what you're talking about. If you're talking to yourself there, Steve.
Well, I don't know. Both of our vehicles have been in the workshops with Steve, haven't they?
I think the last one of mine to go in would have been my Discovery when we did some filming a few years ago.
Yeah, but again,
it's all a blur to me. It's always working on something.
Exactly. So Paul, what are you working on at the moment? Land Rover or non-Land Rover? What's in your workshop?
The non-Land Rover project in the workshop at the moment, which has just gone away to get painted, is an XK150 Jaguar.
It's away for paint now, is it?
That's away for paint. I should be back in a couple of weeks. That was is something I've always fancied, a classic Jag like that, and one came up at the right money, which was a failed project, and I was possibly braver than I anticipated at the time by jumping in and buying it. Compared to a Land Rover, it's an awful lot more work. Land Rovers are pretty straightforward. The Defenders, you bolt them together, you manipulate the panels until they shut gaps are right. And it takes some skill, it takes a lot of patience, but you can do it. With something like a classic Jag, everything is shimmed, even the body onto the chassis is shimmed, and you have to get the shimming right, otherwise the doors aren't open. So it's a lot more head scratching going on than just assembling a Defender.
wow. I mean, I'm doing the alignment and the body lines and the door shuts on my Series 3 at the moment, and I feel a lot better about it now than I did.
Can you imagine? I mean, I remember seeing your Jag, but not long after you actually first got it, I think.
Yes.
And quite a project.
Yes. Yeah. We've wired it now, mainly plumbed it. We haven't fired the engine yet. I'm not brave enough to do that. But it's when he gets back from paint in a couple of weeks. I think we'll put some chrome work on, and that'll make us feel a lot better about it, and then push on and get it finished for hopefully kind of when the sun starts coming out.
So will that make an appearance at Goodwood next year?
Undoubtedly, yes.
Yeah. You've always got to have a goal, haven't you? I think with any project, you've got to have a reason to finish it. I'm looking for my reason.
I was going to start.
I know every podcast, right? So Paul probably isn't familiar with this, but every podcast, I have a dig at Martin about his soon-to-fail turbo on his 300T, and he has a dig at me about my unfinished 90.
I was going to say we've touched on unfinished projects and deadlines in the last 5 minutes, and I just can't stop giggling to myself because I'm desperate to get a dig in. But you've done it yourself.
I preempted it. Yeah. But I know that Paul has finished many a project during the time I've been pretending to finish mine.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
But it's the unfinished project thing is interesting because you do see a lot of them come up for sale, Land Rover or otherwise, and it's generally either goes one or two ways. It's someone's capabilities of maybe their enthusiasm has outweighed their capability and they've decided to call it a day, or people don't have time, things like that. And you either get lucky or you really don't get lucky and you find out there's stuff missing. And Series 1s especially, I know Jack Dobson, our regular contributor, columnist for the magazine, has recently taken on a Series 1 that he's just finished rebuilding. And his main sort of lesson that he learned from that was he shouldn't have bought so much on condition. You should have bought on the number of parts that were with it, because a lot of the really hard to find stuff wasn't there.
Sure. When I bought the 1949 Series 1, I've got the 80. That was an abandoned project. It was basically a rolling chassis with a body separate and everything else in a rather large box. I think two things I learned from that. First of all, the rather large box of parts had some real gems in there, which was great. Some of the original date-coded parts which should have been on the vehicle, like alternator or starter motor. But it will never contain everything you need, which is a problem. And also, with not having taken the vehicle to pieces, it's a lot harder to put it together. Series 3, I've rebuilt Series 3s and Defenders before. You kind of know what you're getting into, and you've got a reference point. You go and look at somebody else's, but on a 1949 80, there was not many about. So there was not many about in the original condition. So it's quite hard to actually reference to try and find. And it's things like what colour should you paint, a radiator cowl, for argument's sake, because all the photographs in the time, in the period, were black and white, so it doesn't really help.
I suppose not. The other thing, of course, is things like Series 1s, they're so sort of specialist that if you were to follow your instinct maybe and get it wrong, they'd be very quickly pointed out by those who
there's too many experts out there. They're never there when you need to ask the question, but they're there when you've made a mistake.
Yeah, definitely.
I think on that point, some of the cars I've got, I've modified them and made them more practical for everyday use. So with two-door Range Rovers, got a slightly bigger engine in and fuel injection on, which is obviously non-original. It's not a purist car, but it's a car I use an awful lot, so it makes it far more practical. If it was a unique number plate, early one, a Velar or something like that, but obviously it should and must be put back to original. But there's an awful lot of cars out there which it's up to the individual who owns it and drives it how they want it, and I'm all for people modifying them and hopefully doing it tastefully. But it's a broad church. I mean, it's just because you don't do it exactly as it came out of the factory doesn't mean it's wrong.
That's a great point. I think.
Yeah. And only the opinion of the person that owns it should matter, really.
You couldn't do it yourself.
Yeah, you're doing it yourself. And why have something that you can't actually use more of the time? just get something right for you. I think that's a good point.
Great example of that, actually, is a series, is it 2 or a 2A that you've got in the workshop?
It's a Series 2, so yeah.
This is my favourite one.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
As a sort of lover of V8s in series Land Rovers, it's a proper bit of kit, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. We're very fortunate. We managed to find a Series 2 which has got a farm-ready original body, so we've never even washed it. The patina on the paint is fantastic. It's worn away where the driver's elbow is. There's dings and scrapes on the front wings, and it shows its age. It looks really, really original and unmolested. The original Series 2 engine was worn out, so we had a V8, so we put a V8 in it. We've retained the Series 2 engine and gearbox, so ever we need to, we can put it back in. It's not a massive amount of modification to do that, but it just makes it such a more enjoyable car to drive now. With the 4-cylinder engine, and it didn't get a lot of use, but we use it quite a lot now. It's great fun to blast around in the summer with a soft top.
It's got a great look to it as well, hasn't it? It's got I think the 8-inch wide sort of dishy steel wheels, and that mixture of canvas top with the amazing patina on it. It just looks like, you just want to jump in it and go.
It is one of those vehicles, but for me, the best bit was what was on the back during our trip to Chelsea Wolves, wasn't it?
The Lucas Classic this year.
Lucas Classic.
The fine edition made by Paul here. I think possibly the best modification I've ever seen to a Land Rover, actually. You might have seen on our social media. A proper pub-style beer pump, wasn't it?
Yeah, sure. We always know that beer and Land Rovers go hand in hand, as long as obviously not driving them. So just after COVID, before we could really socialise properly, we knocked up a beer table adapter for the tailgate of the 88. I had a beer pump, get a barrel of beer, and it's fantastic. I mean, you go to an event and at Chelsea Walsh, it's a focal point. People love to come and have a beer with you and have a chat, and to us, that's what it's about. It's talking to people and sharing experiences.
But not just any beer, was it? It was the finest ale I've probably had for a long time.
A local drop, no less.
Absolutely. I was very fortunate. Richard, our marketing manager, is a guru on real ale, having sampled countless thousands of
it literally, it is into thousands of samples.
Thousands, on his app. So we're very fortunate. He helped us select the best one, and that was a very nice local beer from Ludlow. Really nice as a handful beer. It always goes down well, that.
It certainly does. It was lovely. That night, that evening, the camping on the side of the hill with the Land Rover and drinking that lovely beer and just looking out over the countryside was just stunning.
Well, like I said to Martin that day, I said, if you could bottle this night's camping, you would want to go camping 365 days a year. It was one of those perfect evenings, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Helped by a few pints of
indeed
low gold.
Very taken it was too. But
so moving on, motorsport. You're heavily involved in racing Land Rovers as well, aren't you?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we've as a company we've been involved with the British Cross Country Championship for probably 15 years. I've competed for about 12 years of that. Since COVID, we've not really entered a full championship, got back into it fully yet. The car does need a rebuild, which other essential projects have got in the way of, so it keeps getting pushed to the back. But once we get that done, yes, we'll get out and do selected events again, and we do Comp Safari, which is basically stage rallying, but with more lumpy bits in it.
That's a great description.
Sums it up nicely.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, if you've ever seen the Britpart racer, it's a sort of, looks like a Defender. It's a full space frame, isn't it? With I think it's a John Eels V8.
It's a space frame, John Eels 5.3 V8, which is rear mounted, facing backwards. Drives through a sequential gearbox, basically Discovery 2 axles, Defender steering. We use a lot of Defender and Discovery 2 components on it, but the actual frame and the body is fiberglass replica of a Defender body. So it's a lot lower than a traditional Defender and a lot lighter.
It sounds like absolute thunder as well when you hear it, especially in woodland. Just incredible noise comes out of that car. And yeah, a savvy move really, I guess, keeping as many standard parts as you can, so you've always got easy to, well, you're in the ideal place to get spares, but yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, one of the things I learned pretty early on is that if you modify a part or have a bespoke part made for a car and you break it, you've got a problem, because typically you've got 4 weeks between events. To try and get somebody to make another part in that 4 weeks is stressful. If we can use standard components, readily available, we can fix a car straight away. So it's helped an awful lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I was lucky enough to compete in a couple of rounds of Freelander Challenge in years gone by, and the amount of punishment that those Comp Safari tracks, courses dish out is just unreal. So yeah, having spares on tap is an absolutely, it's an essential really. Like you say, the limited time you've got in service between stages of the track, you're really up against it sometimes. Yeah, but no, if so, you say the Defender, the racer needs a bit of love. Have you got a sort of an event in mind that you'd like to do in future, or is it taking it as it comes?
Yeah, no, we want to get it ready to go down to Goodwood again next year. So that's kind of July. So that's the date to get it ready. I wanted to do the Borders Hill Rally in Scotland in November, but it wouldn't be fair to do it. The car's just not ready.
Right, got you. Fair enough. So yeah, Goodwood, something you're quite heavily involved in actually. I mean, the last one of the previous podcasts we did with Jimmy DeVille was from Goodwood, which you were kind enough to host us at, and for a very special feature which you'll see soon in the magazine. But you, as a company, Britpart, have a display at Festival of Speed, I believe, don't you?
Sure, yeah. Festival of Speed, we've supported the off-road arena for about 8 years now. So halfway up the hill climb over the Festival of Speed, there's typically 40 Comp Safari cars, not all Land Rovers, a whole array of different cars, doing demonstrations in the off-road arena, which is pretty exciting to see. It's on quite a steep hill. There's a couple of jumps where the cars will be getting 2 meters in the air, and some of the cars are 500-600 horsepower, and they really kind of motor on. So it's a great spectacle to see. And we also support Goodwood with their fleet of Series 2s and Series 2As, which they use as hire cars to put out as off-road experience fleet. We supply all the parts and the technical backup for those. And that partnership has grown and is really strong now.
I was going to say, actually, Tom Barnard did a feature in the magazine a couple of issues ago on the Goodwood fleet. All the Series 2As they run, they've got a couple of forward control recovery trucks and some really, really cool stuff. It's obvious that Land Rovers are a big part of their sort of the grounds and the scene and what they do. They're proper work vehicles. It's yeah, really, really interesting. And I was blown away by just not only how many there were, but how active they are around the estate.
Yes, when they first came up with the idea, Lloyd at Goodwood said what he was planning to do, and we got together and thought, how brave, getting a 1950s or 60s Land Rover, trying to work it full time now with novice drivers. Off-road is above a lot of people's expectation, but they've managed to pull it off with good maintenance. They've got a great fleet down there, and on the corporate days seem to fill the seats up every time.
They certainly do fit in around the estate. They're very, it's quintessential British countryside, very historic buildings, and yeah, the Land Rovers just complete that, I think. I don't think any other make or model of vehicle would really fit in as well as they do, to be honest.
They did before use rather large German four-wheel drives, which the majority of the clients didn't appreciate because of the traction control, the comfort. It's more like the car we've driven there in. With a Series Land Rover, no power steering, no power brakes, and a crash gearbox, it's a real workout and a real challenge for a lot of the people to drive.
makes it a lot more of a sort of special occasion, I guess, for them to experience something totally different. And even the, like I say, the forward controls that are used to take clients around the site is like really eye-opening. The sort of, well, you're getting the full classic experience, aren't you? You're not just riding around in some air-conditioned, leather-clad 4x4 from a brand. So, yeah, I think they fit in well. Right, should we have a product of the week quickly?
I think it's probably about time.
Do you want to do it, or shall I?
You do it.
Shall I do it?
Yeah.
I did say that you would do it this week.
You did, yeah. But you put me on the spot.
I know, it snuck up on you, didn't it?
It did.
Well, as we're at Britpart, should we do a Britpart product of the week?
I think we should.
Makes sense, doesn't it? Let's have a look. Let's find a good one. Not that this is off the cuff or anything. It's all very professional here.
Make this up as we go along, hey, for you.
Here's a good one. Right, new Defender, 110, great car, 5 seats, room in the back, sometimes even sit. Can you still get the jump seat in the middle?
You can, yes. You can get a jump seat, so you get an 8-seater, yes.
Oh, well, there we go. I stand corrected. But new product is a boot organiser for 5-seat 110 models. It's part number DA3961, and it replaces the polystyrene jack holder so that you can carry loads of other bits and pieces so it doesn't smash around in the boot when you're going around corners, over rough ground, things like that. A bit of a bargain, actually, £49.79, and available from Britpart stockists. So if you've got a new shape L663 Defender and you're sick of things rattling around in the boot and hitting the trims and making annoying noises, DA3961 can get yourself a boot organiser for a very reasonable price, and all your problems will be solved.
Sounds good.
What's not to like? Yeah, but Britpart, like I say, like Steve touched on earlier, the amount of stuff that you bring new and fresh to market is absolutely astounding, and we obviously try and keep our readers informed as up to date as possible with what's new and what's out there. So keep an eye on the magazine. Keep an eye on our new emails that we're doing as well, because they're packed with new product information as well. And of course, we'll talk about them on the podcast. So moving on from products of the week, should we do a feature of the week?
It goes without saying, absolutely.
They do go hand in hand. Right, so we're going to actually do the cover feature on the latest issue, which is not long gone on sale. This cover vehicle, I think we'll all agree, is worthy of the cover. It is a company called Rig Automotive, who have sort of made a bit of a niche for themselves, really, buying up old Defender ambulances and transforming them into probably the most luxurious campers on the market, or certainly I've ever seen. The one that's on the cover this month is bright orange. It's fully equipped, still retains off-road ability, but the back body is completely decked out. There's nothing on here that it's just mind-blowing. It's got Marshall speakers, wood-clad interior, fold-down table, hob, beds. It's just the most bizarre but incredible thing you've ever seen. So be sure to grab an issue of the December issue of Land Rover Monthly. Read all about that, as well as tons of other great Land Rover content, and of course new products every single month. Give us a follow on socials as well. Land Rover Monthly on Instagram, Facebook and YouTube. We've just put our new video live, actually, haven't we, Steve?
Your new video?
Our new video?
Well, yeah, cameraman was brilliant, I thought. Nothing shaky about the camera angles at all. Perfect.
Well, yeah, so if you hit the subscribe button, because that helps us, and we'll carry on being consistent with YouTube stuff, as well as everything else, and of course the podcast.
Absolutely. I'm fresh back from the Ripon 4x4 Spares Day.
Yes, gearing up
Ripon
for the
racecourse. Yeah.
third and final one of the month.
Yeah, and by the time this goes out, I think we'll just be a couple of days off the last event of the year, which was the Three Counties Showground, Malvern. Paul, you'll be familiar with the Malvern Showground. It's not too far away from here, is it?
No, absolutely, yes. A beautiful Malvern.
The Malvern Hills.
Below Morgan Motor Company.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Do you see quite a lot of Morgans floating around the area?
You do during the week, yeah, not so much during the week.
During
the week.
So I go down there on, say, the Thursday to sort of set up and to see Morgans floating around. And yeah, it's just a cracking place. And I remember, obviously, we've been talking about lots of new parts, but obviously the Spares Days are great for lots of the obsolete stuff.
Sure. I mean, what was interesting is one of our colleagues was at the last the spare stay at Newbury, and he gave me a call and said, "Do you still need a bumper for a Discovery 1 200 TDI rear one?" And I said, "Yes, as long as it's not got holes in." So for 50 quid, we managed to get a bumper which is almost brand new.
Oh, fantastic.
There are some absolute bargains at these shows. And you see, one man's junk is another man's treasure, because somebody else will see that bumper and think nothing more of it. But because you're looking for it, people have all got their little lists and they go off and they find the bits and pieces. And that's what we love about the shows. You just don't know what's going to turn up. Neither do the people looking, and they just buy the stuff and off they go.
Indeed. I picked up a few bits for my Series 3 actually at Newbury as well. I bought a truck cab back panel with a window that actually moves. What else?
Not a moving window.
I know. Well, the channels in my the windows do move, but they move when you don't want them to move, because the runners are so rusted. I've tried to get them out to put new channels in, and it's not having it. So I thought for the
you need more moss in it.
Yes, that's true. Actually, if I leave it outside to season for a while, maybe
that moss will stop them rattling.
I like that idea.
I used to enjoy years ago. I had my first Land Rover. I used to have grass growing in the footwells, and because it started, the mud was falling off my boots, and I'd end up having sort of grass growing. And I left it there because I thought it was cool.
It's doing
very green car, aren't they?
Fit for the environment.
Yeah.
I can imagine it had a certain aroma.
It did. It smelled like an old rugby kit or something left in the bag. Yeah, but damp. And it had mushrooms growing in the window ledges.
Okay.
In the runners. Yeah.
Wow. Maybe I'm doing it wrong then. I shouldn't have bothered spending my money on.
Just let nature take over your car.
Yeah. Good advice. Well, I think we're almost out of time actually. But Paul, thank you ever so much for joining us on this podcast.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming along and spending time with us.
Not at all. Always a pleasure. And we will see you next week.
Bye for now.